Oprah Winfrey is a global icon, known for her impactful roles in films like The Color Purple and Selma, her influential talk show, and her philanthropic efforts, including donating $500 million to various causes. While she has touched the lives of millions, not everyone in the entertainment industry is eager to collaborate with her. Over her 5-decade career, several celebrities have had disagreements or conflicts with the Queen of Talk. Here are some notable figures who have reportedly refused to work with Oprah Winfrey. Starting off today, we are talking about Monique. Monique's clash with Oprah Winfrey is one of Hollywood's most gripping tales of friendship gone awry. Picture this. Monique, fresh off her Oscar win for Precious, is on top of the world. She had always admired Oprah, seeing her as a mentor and a beacon of empowerment, but things took a very sharp turn when Oprah decided to air a show featuring Monique's family, a family fraught with painful memories. Oprah invited Monique's brother, who had admitted to harming her, for an exclusive interview. Monique had reluctantly given her blessing for this, hoping it might bring healing to others. However, what she didn't expect was for Oprah to also invite her mother and father onto the show without her knowledge. Learning that her estranged parents were part of the episode felt like a gut punch. Monique was blindsided and felt deeply betrayed. She believed that Oprah had exploited her personal trauma for television ratings, turning her most vulnerable moments into sensationalized content. It wasn't just about the interview, it was about trust being shattered. Feeling cornered, Monique began to speak out. She accused Oprah, along with industry giants Tyler Perry and Lee Daniels, of blackballing her in Hollywood. She claimed that after she refused to aggressively promote Precious without additional pay, they labeled her as, quote, difficult, a tag that can be career-ending in showbiz. According to Monique, these powerful figures used their influence to sideline her, effectively putting her in what she called a, quote, Hollywood prison. In her stand-up routines and in interviews, Monique didn't hold back. She called out Oprah by name, making it crystal clear that the wounds were deep and the bridge was burnt. To her, Oprah wasn't the inspiring figure the world adored, but someone who had betrayed her trust and derailed her career. Next up, we are talking about 50 Cent. When it comes to celebrities who can't stand Oprah Winfrey, 50 Cent definitely has a spot on this list. The rapper, born Curtis Jackson, has never been one to hold back his opinions, and his long-standing feud with Oprah is no exception to that. It all started when he noticed that hip-hop artists were notably absent from her show. Feeling snubbed, he publicly criticized her for not inviting rappers onto her platform, accusing her of catering exclusively to a white, middle-aged female audience. In a bold 2006 interview with Elle magazine, he didn't mince words, calling her a, quote, Oreo, a term suggesting that she was black on the outside but white on the inside. But 50 Cent didn't just stop at words. In a move dripping with his signature sarcasm, he named his pet dog Oprah, turning his personal jab into a daily reminder of their beef. The tension between them became a hot topic, highlighting a clash between two influential figures from very different worlds. Fast forward to 2012, and Oprah decided to extend an olive branch by interviewing him at his grandmother's home. Sitting down in a setting far removed from the glitz and glamour, they had a candid conversation about their differences. 50 Cent expressed that he felt she was against his music and the culture it represented, shedding light on why he felt marginalized. The interview was definitely a turning point, showing that even the biggest feuds can find some kind of common ground. Still, the journey to that moment was filled with sharp comments and pointed gestures that kept fans and the media buzzing. Next, we are talking about Kris Brown. Kris Brown's clash with Oprah is a compelling chapter in the saga of celebrities who can't stand the media mogul. After the shocking incident in 2009 where Kris harmed his then-girlfriend Rihanna, the world was buzzing with outrage and a ton of disappointment. Oprah didn't stay silent. She dedicated an entire episode of her show to discuss the serious issue of DV. She made a powerful statement, quote, quote, "If a man hits you once, he will hit you again." While many applauded her for addressing the topic head-on, Kris took it personally. He felt singled out and believed that Oprah was indirectly attacking him without giving him a chance to explain or redeem himself. What stung even more for Kris was that he had previously performed at Oprah's Leadership Academy for girls in South Africa. In his mind, they had a cordial relationship, and he expected a bit more support, or at least neutrality from her. He expressed his disappointment publicly, saying that he felt let down by someone he thought was in his corner. Kris believed that Oprah could have used her influential platform to help him learn and grow from his mistakes, rather than, as he saw it, adding to the public condemnation. This feeling of betrayal, fueled by his resentment towards her, landing him squarely on the list of celebrities who can't stand Oprah Winfrey. Next, we are talking about Whoopi Goldberg. Whoopi Goldberg and Oprah Winfrey. Two iconic figures who both dazzled audiences in the 1985 classic The Color Purple, had a surprising and long-standing estrangement that left many fans puzzled. Despite sharing the screen in such a beloved film and being national treasures of the same age, the two didn't speak for years afterward. The tension became public when Whoopi was noticeably absent from Oprah's star-studded Legends Ball guest list in 2006, raising eyebrows and fueling rumors. So, what happened between the two? According to some, including author Kitty Kelly, professional jealousy might have played a role. Whoopi snagged an Oscar nomination for Best Actress for her role in The Color Purple, while Oprah was nominated for Best Supporting Actress. This difference in recognition could have created an unspoken rift between them. Imagine being part of such a groundbreaking film and then feeling overshadowed. That's definitely enough to strain any relationship. But here is where the story takes a heartwarming turn. Years later, during a reunion of the Color Purple cast on Oprah's show, the two finally addressed the elephant in the room. At a party hosted by their mutual friend Tyler Perry, they had a candid conversation. Oprah reportedly said, "You think I'm mad at you? I thought you were mad at me." They both realized that years of silence were based on a simple misunderstanding. All it took was an honest chat to clear the air. They laughed about how a single conversation years earlier could have saved them from a lot of unnecessary distance. This tale of miscommunication between Whoopi and Oprah adds another chapter to the list of celebrities who haven't always seen eye to eye with the Queen of Talk. It's a reminder that even the biggest stars can have misunderstandings, and sometimes all it takes is a conversation to set things right. Next up, we are talking about David Letterman. David Letterman and Oprah Winfrey, two titans of television, had a legendary feud that spanned more than 20 years, and it's a story filled with humor, misunderstandings, and a touch of awkwardness. It all supposedly kicked off in the late 80s with a prank that didn't quite land as Dave intended. Imagine them both dining at the same upscale restaurant. Ever the prankster, Letterman thought it would be hilarious to tell the waiter that Oprah would cover his check. So, when the waiter presented Oprah with the bill for both tables, she was less than amused. That little joke didn't sit well with her, and it planted the seed for years of tension. Fast forward to 1995, and Letterman is hosting the Oscars. He opens the show with a famously awkward bit: Oprah, Uma. Uma, Oprah. The joke fell flat, and many felt it was at Oprah's expense. She wasn't thrilled about being the punchline on such a grand stage, and the media buzzed about a growing rift between the two. For years, they avoided each other, fueling speculation and turning their estrangement into one of Hollywood's most talked about feuds. In 2005, Oprah decided to break the ice and appeared on The Late Show to address the situation head on. Sitting across from Letterman, she said candidly, "I have never for a moment had a feud with you. I want you to know it's really over, whatever you thought was happening." It seemed like they were finally burying the hatchet, but here's where it gets even more interesting. Later on, Oprah revealed that her discomfort actually dated back to 1989 when she was a guest on Letterman's show. She felt blindsided by the audience's reaction, which she believed was influenced by a controversial episode of her own show that had aired the day before. She left that interview feeling uneasy, and those feelings lingered for years. From Dave's ill-timed jokes to Oprah's lingering discomfort, their complicated relationship is a tale of how small misunderstandings can escalate even between the biggest celebrities. Next, we are talking about James Frey. James Frey believed he had struck literary gold when Oprah selected his memoir, A Million Little Pieces, for her esteemed book club. Suddenly, his raw and unflinching tale of addictions skyrocketed to the top of bestseller lists. But then, the unexpected happened. Investigative journalists uncovered that Frey had fabricated and exaggerated significant portions of his true story. When Oprah discovered the deception, she felt personally betrayed, and she wasn't about to ignore it. In a gripping and unforgettable episode of her show, Oprah invited Frey back for a public confrontation. Sitting face to face, she didn't hold back. Quote, "I feel duped," she told him candidly. Quote, "But more importantly, I feel that you betrayed millions of readers." The audience was utterly silent as Frey squirmed under her intense gaze. The showdown was dramatic, unfolding before millions of viewers. The fallout was swift. His publisher dropped him, bookstores pulled his book from the shelves, and his reputation took a serious hit. Although they eventually reconciled years later, the damage was already done. Frey experienced firsthand the immense influence Oprah wields and the consequences of falling out of her favor. It's no surprise that he remains one of the celebrities who can't stand Oprah Winfrey. His story is a stark reminder: crossing Oprah can leave you exposed under a very unforgiving spotlight. While Oprah Winfrey remains a beloved and influential figure, her interactions with these celebrities highlight that even the most admired individuals can have conflicts and misunderstandings.
At number 10, Vivica A. Fox. You know, you don't always have to like everybody. It's okay not to be the biggest fan of someone, but for the sake of appearances, it might be a good idea to at least pretend like this person doesn't bother you. This could be extra good advice for celebrities as well. Because Hollywood is essentially one big show, having beefs with people isn't always the best thing for you, and watching two people who hate each other try to have a conversation can be painful as well. Take for example the bad blood between Vivica A. Fox and Jimmy Kimmel. To start, these two celebrities weren't the biggest fans of each other to begin with, but when the actress was on Jimmy Kimmel Live back in 2005, their bad blood started to really boil, and it led to the actress being banned from the show. The actress was on the show to promote her movie Missing, but things didn't go as smoothly as planned, because as Jimmy made a joke about one of Vivica's friends, it made her upset and she ended up storming off the set, leaving Jimmy to finish the segment without his guest. Later on, he said that Vivica was one guest that he would never have back on the show. At number 9, Bill Hicks. Many times in Hollywood, we see people get in trouble for being too controversial. It's basically the backbone of cancel culture. Well, here's an example of someone being banned from a talk show for being so controversial that their segment was scrapped entirely. Comedian Bill Hicks made a number of appearances on Letterman between 1984 and 1993, but his 12th appearance on the show was scrapped after it was deemed too controversial to be aired. After that, a ban was issued. According to the comedian, Letterman as well as the audience didn't seem to have many issues with his set, but it was the show's executives who had the whole thing scrapped. This statement has been debated by some because a lot of people still took offense to some of the topics the comedian was discussing. Unfortunately, the comedian never got a chance to redeem himself on the show as he passed away a short time later. Now, before I carry on telling you guys about celebrities who've been banned from late night shows, I would first like to take a moment to ask you guys to leave a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, and maybe consider subscribing to the channel if you want to see more of our videos. At number 8, Madonna. It seems as though there's a good chunk of people who really don't like Madonna. There could be 1.5 million reasons why she and others do not always get along, but the bottom line here is that not everyone wants to be friends with the singer, especially Piers Morgan. There seemed to be some kind of one-sided beef with the singer that frankly I don't think she cares about too much, but Piers on the other hand had a lot to say about her. Morgan said that Madonna was banned from his program because she is, quote, boring and annoying. He also went on to say, quote, Madonna and I, we've never really seen eye to eye. There was a bread roll throwing incident in London in the mid-90s. There was an incident at a hotel in the south of France at the Cannes Film Festival involving a photographer and a bodyguard. There's been an incident involving a pub owned by her recently departed husband Guy Ritchie, where my brother was the manager, end quote. If you thought he was done with his commentary on the singer, you thought wrong. Pierce also said that Madonna was too vegan for TV. Whatever that means. Either way, Madonna never responded to all of Pierce's comments about her, so again, I think she remained pretty unfazed by the ban that he had put in place, but clearly the TV host had some pent-up aggression there. At number 7, Joan Rivers. Apparently, late-night TV host Johnny Carson and Joan Rivers had so much beef that he not only banned the comedian from his show, but he also refused to speak to her for the rest of his life. When Carson became the host of The Tonight Show in 1962, Joan was starting to rise to fame for her comedy. She and Carson became a pretty dynamic duo as she appeared in his late-night show almost 100 times. She was hired as a writer and even became a guest host when Carson was away, but in the mid-80s, that's when things started to turn bad as Joan was upset that NBC never offered her a long-term contract. When talks of Carson's retirement began, there was a list of potential candidates of who would replace him, and to her astonishment, Joan wasn't on that list. The silver lining there was that Fox later contacted her about having her own late night show, and she jumped at the opportunity. This made Johnny really mad because he felt like he was almost being blindsided by the whole thing. This caused them to have a pretty big falling out, which led to Joan being banned from her former friend's show. When speaking out about the drama between them, Joan went on to say, quote, "I think he really felt because I was a woman that I was his, that I wouldn't leave him. I know this sounds very warped, but I don't understand otherwise what was going on. For years I thought that maybe he liked me better than the others, but I think that it was a question of I found you and you're my property. He didn't like that as a woman I went up against him." End quote. At number 6, Kelsey Grammer. I feel like when a celebrity asks for something specific, it should be given to them. I'm not talking about anything material like demanding a cup of ice chips or something. I mean a specific request in reference to the way that they are treated. For actor Kelsey Grammer, he made a very specific request when doing an interview with Piers Morgan, and when that request wasn't honored, there was a falling out that led to the actor being banned from the show. When the actor made a guest appearance on Piers Morgan Tonight back in 2012, he requested that a picture of his ex-wife not be shown. He was willing to answer questions about her, but just didn't want to have a photo of her be aired. Well, Piers didn't honor that request, and when a photo of his ex-wife was shown, Kelsey stormed off set. The actor's publicist said that Piers had to take accountability for his actions because Kelsey was so mad about the situation, but instead, Piers barred the actor from his show. That doesn't really seem like the right thing to do in that kind of situation, but okay. At number 5, Jackie Mason. I'm sure we are all aware of how sensitive TV networks are about what kinds of things get aired. Saying some kind of adult word can cause some serious consequences, but what about hand gestures? Well, it turns out that those are also against the rules, and someone had their whole career ended because of it. Comedian Jackie Mason had been working on The Ed Sullivan Show for a bit back in the day, and it made him pretty successful. He was given a contract for 6 appearances, which was set to earn him around $45,000, which is more like $350,000 in today's money, since this all happened back in the mid-60s. Either way, it was a very well-paying job for only having to do 6 appearances. Anyway, his entire contract was essentially ripped up after he got into some trouble for flipping the bird on stage. Jackie was playing off one of the stage managers who was making gestures with his fingers to indicate how much time he had left, but he went a little too far. As part of his little joke, he pointed his finger around the room saying, quote, "Here's a finger for you, and a finger for you, and a finger for you." End quote. This kind of behavior was not allowed, and so he was booted off the show and subsequently banned. At number 4, Artie Lang. When you're a guest on someone's show, the expectation for celebrities is that they stay alert, engaging, and on their best behavior. For comedian Artie Lang, it seems as though he didn't follow through with that unwritten rule, and he got banned because of it. Lang had been struggling with substance abuse, and though he had appeared on Conan O'Brien's show a number of times, he ended up getting banned because the producer thought that he was under the influence of some kind of substance on his last appearance, so they told him that he wouldn't be welcome back on the show until he was clean and could prove it. The studio didn't want to risk anything if Artie kept coming back while he was still using, and so they did it for his own good as well as to save their own image as well. At number 3, Howie Mandel. If you watched America's Got Talent, then you know that Howie Mandel and Piers Morgan were judges together. Through the time that they worked together, Howie was known to play pranks on Piers, like using fart machines on him and setting up vending machine blockades. Although Howie thought that this was all in good fun, Piers on the other hand wasn't impressed with his co-workers' antics, and even going so far as to call Howie the quote, "most annoying man that he's ever met." End quote. Piers didn't like Howie so much that he ended up adding him to the list of celebrities who he had banned from his show. There was some bad blood there, but honestly, after learning about how many people Piers Morgan seemed to have beef with, this ban honestly doesn't even surprise me in the slightest. At number 2, Gilbert Gottfried. This ban has to be one of the most pointless bans I have ever heard of because it really wasn't necessary at all. Howard Stern banned Gilbert Gottfried from his show simply because the comedian went on another show. I know. I don't get it either. There wasn't even any bad blood between them. When Godfrey got cancelled after making insensitive tweets about the devastating tsunami that hit Japan in 2011, Howard even came to his defense online, so really no one knows what the motive behind this ban really was. I'm sure it can't really be because he went on another show, because that is so absurd, but honestly, we may never know. And finally, at number 1, Gene Simmons. I think that we can all agree that Gene Simmons is somewhat outlandish. He's a guy with a lot of big energy and no filter, so when it comes to interviewing him live, you never know what he might say, but you can certainly hope that it won't be too offensive. At one point, the singer was a Fox favorite, making regular appearances on their programming where they would discuss hot topics in the world and would share their opinions on things. They liked the guy and they liked having him on their talk show, but after causing a stir during a meeting at Fox and making some crude comments towards some of the other staff members, Gene got banned for life, and it was a hot topic of its own. Some of the things that Gene said to some of the women at the network got leaked, and it's not something that you would want to have said to you, let's just put it that way. After all that went down, the singer was not welcome back on their programming, and honestly, I can't say I blame them. At number 10, Hugh Grant. You don't really hear too much about Hugh Grant these days, so when I found out that he was banned from somewhere, I was actually pretty shocked. He was banned from The Daily Show after having a really bad interview that affected the show's host. Jon Stewart, the former host of The Daily Show, said in an interview that Hugh Grant was the absolute worst guest he'd ever had on the show. He spoke about how when Hugh was on to promote his film Did You Hear About the Morgans, Hugh was making a huge scene backstage and was really mean and annoying to the people who were working on set. Apparently, Hugh was allegedly going around saying that he had better places to be. He also got really upset about the clip that they played from the film, saying, quote, "What is that clip? It is a terrible clip." To which Jon replied, telling Hugh to make a better movie. You could really tell that Jon was fed up with Hugh and his attitude on the show. Jon went on to say that because of his poor experience with Hugh, he would never have him back on his show. At number 9, Kathy Griffin. Kathy Griffin is known for being pretty outspoken and controversial at times, and it's because of her antics that she's been banned from just about every talk show. Because of her unpredictable actions, use of crude language, and her problematic past, she isn't welcome on shows like The View, The Today Show, Ellen, Regis and Kelly, Jay Leno, Letterman, and many others. She's racked up a lot of these bans over the years, but some new ones, like being fired from CNN, come from the backlash that she gained after the Donald Trump incident where she posed with a fake bloodied model of Donald Trump's head. She's been known to ruffle people's feathers on live TV and pull stunts that are inappropriate for broadcast. For example, during her time hosting the New Year's Eve special with Anderson Cooper on CNN, she used profanity and even removed some of her clothing on TV. On top of that, she's offended people during award shows while making speeches and making inappropriate comments. Though she's been banned from certain TV shows, I really think that people just want her banned from the media in general because of her actions. Now, before I carry on talking about more celebrities banned from late night programs, I would first like to take a moment to ask you guys to consider leaving a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, because it really helps the channel out and we appreciate you guys supporting our platform. At number 8, Harmony Korine. I think it's common knowledge, at least to most people, that when you're a guest somewhere, you should try and be on your best behavior. Most people follow this unspoken rule, but many others don't, especially celebrities, as we will see throughout this list. One person who really should have tried to behave themselves is director Harmony Korine, who's best known for the movie Spring Breakers. There was once a time when Harmony made a number of appearances on The Late Show with David Letterman in the mid to late 90s. This was also during a time when Harmony was reportedly on a lot of drugs. Though he was a frequent guest on the show, his appearances just stopped all of a sudden, and no one really knew why until 2013 when Letterman revealed the truth as to why the director was banned from coming on the show. Apparently, Letterman caught the director going through Meryl Streep's purse one time, and that was just the last straw for the late night host. When talking about this fateful event, Letterman said, quote, "I went upstairs to greet Meryl Streep and welcome her to the show. I knocked on the door and she wasn't there. I looked around and found Harmony going through her purse. True story. And so I said, that's it, put her things back in her bag and then get out." End quote. After that, Harmony was no longer welcome on the show and has not been back since. At number 7, Bobcat Goldthwait. I think that this goes without saying, but don't go setting fire to random things. I know Adele said set fire to the rain, but that was just a metaphor. Clearly though, one guest on Jay Leno didn't quite get the memo because they ended up setting a fire during their interview on The Late Night Show. Back in 1994, actor Bobcat Goldthwait was a guest on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, and during his guest appearance, the actor decided to randomly set fire to his chair. At the time, Jay thought that this was just a spontaneous bit, but in reality, Bobcat came prepared for this as he brought lighter fluid and a lighter that was hidden up his sleeve. Luckily, the other guest who was there that night, Lauren Hutton, was quick on her feet and doused the flames with a cup of water. Jay, understandably, was very unhappy with all this and banned Bobcat from the show. Not only that, but the actor was also charged with arson for his stunt and was ordered to pay over $3,300 in fines, some of which went towards replacing the chair that he set fire to. Not too sure why he decided to make this interview go up in flames like that, but at least he won't be able to pull that stunt again. At least not with Jay. At number 6, Dax Shepard. Actor and comedian Dax Shepard has been very open about his struggles with substance abuse for some time now. He's opened up about some of the lowest points in his career that was caused by his substance abuse, including one time that got him banned from a late night show. Dax told a story about how he was once preparing to be on Late Night with Conan O'Brien in 2004, but when he was doing the pre-interview, he blacked out. Dax didn't remember any of the pre-interview where he was supposed to go over the talking points for the evening, and by the time his real interview started, he was so lost. He went into detail saying, quote, "I show up on the show and I don't know what he's talking about. I can tell he's queuing me up for stories I've told, but I don't know any of the stories," end quote. Because of how badly he messed up his interview, he was banned from the show for a few years until he got sober. Years later, he was welcomed back on the show and all was forgiven, but it was still a low point for the actor. At number 5, Jay Leno. This next ban was caused by one serious feud between Jay Leno and Conan O'Brien. Because both men were talented late night hosts, there were a lot of pitches from different networks trying to poach one or the other to take over talk shows and whatnot. Well, things got kind of heated when Conan was promised the hosting gig for The Tonight Show when Jay's contract was up. As you would imagine, Jay didn't take the news very well, and so he decided to start his own show, The Jay Leno Show, which aired before Conan's. Well, when neither of their shows were bringing in good ratings, the network reshuffled the time slots, gave Conan's slot to Jay, and bumped Conan's show back half an hour. Conan didn't like that, took a payout, and The Tonight Show fell back into Jay's hands. Later on, when asked if he would have Jay on an episode of his show, Conan shut that down, essentially saying that Jay would have been banned from his program. There was just a lot of bitterness between them, and the water under that bridge has certainly dried up. At number 4, Gary Busey. A lot of people enjoy their personal space. I know that there are many people who love getting close to others and who are very physical people, but you know, not everybody likes that. Getting upset when someone invades your personal space without permission is pretty understandable, and this notion is what got Gary Busey banned from the Howard Stern Show. Back in 2001, actor Gary Busey was on the Howard Stern Show and seemed to have ignored the notion of personal space, and that rubbed Howard the wrong way. While on the show, the actor picked up Howard's co-host, Robin Quivers, giving him a big bear hug, and even chased Howard around the studio trying to wrestle him. Howard really didn't like what Gary was doing that day, and so he promptly banned him from coming back on the show. When Gary explained the motives behind his actions, he blamed it on his quote, 13 separate personalities. He continued to say that he was just really excitable that day, but that wasn't a good enough excuse to get him back onto the show until 2017, when he was invited to do an audio-only interview with Howard. At number 3, Howard Stern. But speaking of Howard Stern, he himself has been banned from a late night show. Apparently, he and Jay Leno have had beef ever since Howard's 1995 appearance on The Tonight Show. This appearance was pretty chaotic. Howard entered onto the show with 2 women in bikinis and prompted the women to start kissing each other on air. On top of that, Howard kept speaking over Jay and other guests while on the show as well. Jay was apparently so fed up with Howard and his antics that he nearly walked off set, and was so mad about the way that the show turned out that evening that he later called into Howard's show to say that he had, quote, gone beyond the acceptable standards. After that, Howard was banned, and he and Jay have had beef ever since. At number 2, Donald Trump. Now, to find out that Donald Trump has been banned from any kind of talk show really isn't all that surprising. So many hosts from various shows have banned the former president, but this next ban is a little juicier because it kind of involves some beef between the Donald and late night host Seth Meyers. In 2016, the late night talk show host issued a ban against Donald Trump in retaliation for Trump having revoked Seth's Washington Post credentials. Though it was an official ban, it was also done as a joke since Seth already knew that Donald would never be on a show anyway, but it was about the principle. In a joke statement to Donald, Seth said, quote, "We instituted this ban despite the fact that he's never been here or asked to be here or would never be caught dead here. I just think that it takes an amazing amount of courage on our part. So the ball is in your court, Donald. Either rescind your Washington Post ban or you're not allowed to appear on the show you have no interest in appearing on. Although maybe now that you can't have it, you're changing your mind." End quote. And finally, at number 1, Oprah Winfrey. This last ban seems to have been more so self-imposed. After making an appearance on David Letterman's show in 1989, Oprah Winfrey issued a self-imposed ban, refusing to go back on Letterman's show. After what she experienced on the show, Oprah and Letterman seem to have had some kind of feud going on, though it was more low-key than others. As for what happened to cause this self-imposed ban, well, Oprah finally opened up about the event that caused this back in 2013, saying, quote, "It was a terrible experience for me. The guy in the audience started yelling, 'Get her, Dave.' You were sort of baiting the audience and there were a bunch of drunk guys down the front. I was trying to mitigate the whole thing. It felt so uncomfortable for me. I didn't want to have that experience again." End quote. Basically, she was just really uncomfortable on the show and wanted to forget about the event, hence her minor beef with the late night host, and she just didn't want a repeat of that unpleasant experience.
Number 10. Will Smith. Kicking off our list is husband, father, and professional smack master himself, Will Smith Esquire. In season 3, episode 12 of the series, Jada invited her husband, Will, onto the show so that they could talk and speak openly and publicly about an alleged relationship between herself and the singer August Alsina during a brief separation in 2015. The singer claimed that he had to have Will's blessing to begin the relationship in the first place, despite the pair technically being separated at the time. Jada confirmed that the relationship did in fact take place, but they were on a break, you know? Like, come on, they were on a break. She denies that Will ever gave August permission, you know, but when referring to the situation as an entanglement, Will snapped and he made her correct herself, saying, hey, it's a relationship, okay? Say the word relationship. Now, while it may have been playful, seeing him get mad at all after 2022 just brings pure anxiety into my soul. So please keep calm and Will Smith, go on. Number 9, Leah Remini. Scientology, the gift that just keeps on giving. Well, in 2015, Leah Remini wrote a Scientology exposing memoir called Troublemaker. In said book, Leah recounts seeing Jada appearing at Scientology gatherings, recounting one instance in particular when Jada refused to participate in a game of hide and seek in Tom Cruise's backyard. Why does that sound like the start to just a really bad joke? That actually happened? That's something that happened? Wow. I want to go to Tom Cruise's backyard. When asked on Bravo's Watch What Happens Live for her side of the story, Pinkett Smith said that she remembered the story differently and that the game was more like adults innocently playing hide and seek with their children. But Remini says she took this as textbook fair gaming, which is a strategy with Scientologists, where they mock and then unrelentingly discredit critics of their religions. Now, on Red Table Talk, Smith explained a series of tweets defending her family and their religious beliefs, later stating that she actually grew up in a fairly liberal household and was allowed to explore all religions and just simply choose for herself which one she wanted to commit to. Now, Remini reminded Pinkett Smith of her high celebrity status and stated that Remini herself was interrogated for months by the Scientology community after just simply asking one member of the church where the leader's wife was. Like, not if she was alive, just how's she doing, you know? Things ended civilly between the two, with both agreeing that despite the feud and misunderstanding, that it's never too late to heal. Number 8, Nick Cannon. TV personality and full-time baby maker Nick Cannon has been open about his disdain for the series for quite some time, denying multiple requests to appear on the show. But after the show's cancellation last week, Cannon took to Twitter to express his pure joy, stating that the show was toxic and added that there was too much honesty to the program, saying that he just wants to mind his own business and asked that she does the same. He also claimed that if it weren't for his involvement with the program, that husband Will Smith would have never even thought of slapping Chris Rock, and that she somehow stoked the fire that fueled his rage that night. I understand the hate. Red Table Talk got into too much information territory way too many times to be a normal talk show, and Jada seeks out reasons to bring her family on there constantly. Now, I'm all for family drama, but not in front of a camera, you know, being recorded to share for millions of people. I don't need the world to know that. Cannon is no stranger to family drama, but you can just Google that. Number 7, Tom Segura. Comedian Tom Segura was one of many celebrities to speak out after the now infamous Chris Rock incident at the Oscars in 2022. Now, I'll be paraphrasing here as I don't want to just quote a series of bleeps over and over again. That's no fun. So Tom tweeted, "This girl been bald. Jokes about it or her are fine. It was tame AF. You super sensitive about it? Buy a wig." Boom. Roasted. While Pinkett Smith hasn't herself commented on the posts, many fans were really quick to defend Jada, calling the comedian a bully. Now, fans of Segura know his style, and he kept to that, responding to the haters, comparing their sensitivity to a certain member of his anatomy, before posting a video of him landing in New York City and stating, "Just landed in NYC, you dusty ball-headed female dogs. See you at the show." Personally, I'd love to see Jada and Tom go head-to-head in a roast battle. I would like make that a talk show. I'll watch that on Facebook. Number 6, Gabrielle Union. This beef started 17 years ago, a long time to hold a grudge, but what for exactly? Well, they don't know either. Jada brought Gabrielle on the show to address the fact that despite the two always crossing paths and being cold with each other, that they just couldn't remember why. Union called Jada on the phone and they both attempted to piece together what exactly left such a terrible taste in each other's mouths. They tried and tried and tried, but they just couldn't remember it, and eventually Union agreed to appear on the show where the two put the past behind them and they were just able to laugh it off, chalking it up to the drama of young divas. They had a good time on the show, just catching up, discussing life, and it actually turned out to be a pretty heartwarming episode. I know this is a mainly negative list so far, so let's all just take a deep breath, and if you haven't already, click the subscribe button so you can always be a part of the drama. Now, seeing as the show's editors have done their very best to make Jada look good, I will also be including some people who weren't on the show, but were or shared their feelings afterwards or just had some kind of involvement with her. Number 5. August Alsina. Now, mentioned previously in this list, August Alsina is a rapper and the former love interest of the star of our list, Miss Jada Pinkett Smith. The two first met in 2015 at a concert for Jaden and Willow Smith, and the connection was instant. The two became very good friends as August was going through some substance issues, and Smith was the helpful hand he needed to get through. This would explain why over the time the relationship began to turn romantic. After Jada and Will took a brief break from their marriage, Jada wasn't just left alone. She had a shoulder to cry on. August. August told radio host Angela Yee this past June that he truly and really just deeply loved her. Unfortunately for August, Jada thought that it would be a wonderful idea to bring her husband on the show and air out their dirty laundry. So August was revealed as a secret lover, but the Smiths said that they've reached a level of unconditional love within their marriage. Before being painted as the enemy, August released a statement letting everybody know that I'm always going to be in the driver's seat of my life and control my own narrative. Just steer clear of Will's right hand. It's a bit dangerous. Number 4, Jaden Smith. Another member of the Smith family, Jaden is remembered by many as the little boy from the Karate Kid remake, but he's now mainly known for his rapping and singing chops. Jaden's been living in the shadow of his father from day one, being thrust into the limelight before he even hit double digits. With famous parents comes challenges. One of those challenges seems to be a lack of hugs. Well, that's sad. The Smith kids are famously left to their own devices and have been financially independent from a very young age, meaning they've never really had to ask mom and dad to help buy something for them or even save money for everything because they've just kind of always had it. They make it themselves now. Who needs them? In an episode of Table Talk, Jaden confronted his mother on the way that he was raised, claiming that their style of parenting ruined his life and his ability to connect with people. Now, Jaden has constantly been a good soul in social media and is extremely loyal to his fan base, so don't worry, man, you've got a massive family out there. It's 1 million strong. Let's just not all try to hug him at once. Number 3, Khloe Kardashian. Khloe Kardashian is an American personality and socialite, according to Wikipedia. Present in the media for years, starring alongside her fellow family members of the hit show Keeping Up with the Kardashians, Khloe released a series of tweets a while back claiming that men blaming women in their relationships for all of their problems was invalid and hurtful. And while this is true, many have called out the star on her comments because of a famous interview from Red Table Talk, which is Jordan Woods. Jordan Woods came forward and told the truth about an alleged cheating scandal. The man in question, Tristan Thompson, claimed that Jordan performed a number of provocative acts, but she denies many of these claims. Despite this, Khloe publicly blamed Jordan for the entire breakup of her family and names her as the enemy every time. But during all this, Jada Smith just sat back and watched the drama unfold instead of having anything to do with it. So, yeah, that's kind of worse than what Khloe did. Just saying. Help. Number 2, Chris Rock. In 2022, Chris Rock was hosting the 94th annual Oscars ceremony, where he decided to make a little joke about Jada Pinkett Smith and her hair loss. Immediately following the joke, which landed for everybody else in the audience, okay, Will Smith stood up, walked on stage, and just clocked Chris right in the face. Now, initially being seen as a planned joke or something between the two, Will then started shouting several times at Rock to keep his wife's name out his mouth. Chris handled the situation well, getting back onto the festivities and just kind of helping the night move on and making it seem like nothing happened. But after Smith won the Oscar for Best Performance, Rock took to social media to address the controversy and let everybody know that he meant no harm, and he felt the response Will had was highly extreme. He also claims that if Jada had found the joke funny, that nothing would have happened. In fact, moments before walking on stage, you can actually see Will Smith giggle. Like, it's almost like she whispered at him, like, get him, and it activated some kind of kill code or destruction code, and he just went for it. Jada posted several videos claiming that Rock was dragging the situation out too long and to put the past behind them, but I'm sorry, Smith family, there's no Men in Black mind erasers here, okay? Chris Rock can still hear the ringing in his ears today. Come on. Number 1, Cherie Fletcher. Let me guess, you don't recognize that name. Well, only hardcore Will Smith fans would, because Cherie is Will's ex-wife. Briefly married in the mid-90s, Will and Cherie were adorable together. They were regularly appearing at red carpet events, movie premieres, just adorable, inseparable, wonderful. But behind the screen, things weren't all peachy. It was revealed on an episode of Red Table that Jada Pinkett briefly partook in an affair with Will in 1995. Now, Jada claims that Cherie and Will were towards the end of their relationship and was simply, in her eyes, dating a newly divorced man. But she would later admit that technically that wasn't the case, and while Will was technically divorced hadn't really come into play yet, Cherie discovered what was taking place and went off on the couple. Not long after that, ended her marriage with Will Smith. And in 2018, the two got back together to speak candidly about the incident on Red Table. Definitely an episode worth checking out. Number 10, Hugh Grant. Hugh may be known for being a rom-com sweetheart, but there is a ton of evidence that proves that this guy is a massive jerk. Case in point, Hugh Grant's banned from Jon Stewart's very own late night show. Grant made an appearance on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart in 2009 that did not go very well. According to Jon, Hugh wanted nothing to do with the interview, being annoyed from start to finish. He had apparently been giving the crew a hard time because food wasn't the way he liked it, his dressing room wasn't right. During the interview, Hugh actually complained about the clip that the producers had chosen to show on air, saying it was a bad clip, to which Jon said, well, make a better movie then. The interview was so bad that I actually could not find a clip of it online. It's like Hugh paid the internet to hide the clip somewhere in the cloud. So if you end up finding it, please share it in the comments. I would really love to see it. Hugh was banned from appearing on Jon's show ever again, something he was not aware of until 2012, posting a tweet claiming Jon had every right to kick him to the curb. Number 9, Vince Vaughan. It started in 2010 when Vaughan raised some eyebrows following the release of the trailer for his movie The Dilemma, when his character made some controversial comments. Electric cars are gay is something that Vince Vaughan actually says. Not that they're like homo, I don't know, he says a lot of stuff, I don't feel like quoting it, it's pretty rough. The actor uttered a lot of really just nasty things about gay people during the previews for the film, and as a gay woman and icon for the LGBTQ community, one might imagine that remark didn't sit well with Ellen DeGeneres. Although measures were taken to remove this line from the trailer, Vince doubled down on his views, claiming that the preview should just be left alone, there was nothing wrong with it, defending the line as a joke that should not have been taken seriously. Following the comments, it was reported that he was banned from Ellen's show indefinitely. The rumors took over the internet, and Vince had little to say about the ban because it was never actually a real ban. It turns out the only reason that Vaughan stopped coming onto the show was because he had nothing to promote until 2016 when he made his return to the talk show. But that does mean that for 6 years Vince Vaughan was not getting a ton of film roles, he wasn't asked to make a lot of TV appearances, and even if he did, it was in a small capacity. Eventually, the so-called ban was lifted, and Vince revealed that there was no hate between himself and Ellen. Unfortunately, Ellen did not speak much to the rumored ban, so for 6 years the world thought that he was just an outcast. Number 8, Dax Shepard. Dax is a wonderful comedian and writer, being behind some awesome movies from the past few years. Schlocky classics like Idiocracy, Employee of the Month, and the buddy comedy Without a Paddle, alongside Seth Green and Matthew Lillard. While doing promotion for that movie in 2004, Dax was invited onto The Late Night Show with Conan O'Brien. So he starts off the interview by falling over a table and knocking just a bunch of water onto Conan's floor. Great first impression. Conan then attempts to get some stories out of Dax related to the project or himself, but he instead opts to make jokes, tell Conan about a motorcycle accident he had, and improvising the DVD extras on Conan's special. If it weren't for Conan's yes and attitude, this interview would have ended in disaster. Conan later revealed that Dax had received a lifetime ban from his show, mainly due to the fact that Dax had just woken up 20 minutes before the interview had even started, after drinking no juice to the point of blacking out, which would probably explain why he's so groggy throughout most of the interview. This ban was eventually lifted after Dax put his partying days behind him, being clean and sober now for roughly 16 years. Number 7. Madonna. Piers Morgan is a terrible man, period. He has made some racially fueled comments over the years that were so bad he eventually got kicked off of CNN, but not before he issued a public ban to pop icon Madonna. Apparently the entire feud between these two stems from an incident involving bread rolls. I guess Piers was accidentally hit by a roll that Madonna threw or something. I don't know, the full story was never actually revealed in that case. But it can't just be a bread roll, because this man spent 20 years talking trash about Madonna, calling her names that I cannot repeat online. He was always trying to egg her on, telling her managers to stop tweeting him. Well, the joke is on Piers in this situation. Not only did his show eventually get cancelled, but Rosie O'Donnell actually banned Piers from her show in retaliation. He'd visited Rosie before. In fact, her show received almost double his views at the time, but he'd never be able to leech off of her again, making this entry a double whammy. Number 6. Howard Stern. Howard Stern may have been one of the best talk show guests in the 90s and the early 2000s. Now, while he's stellar when he actually allows someone to interview him, he particularly rocked it when he was at his most outrageous. This is because he would just kinda come out and take over. He appeared on many talk shows over the years, but there was never a rivalry quite like Stern versus Jay Leno. Apparently Jay didn't want to put out an edgy show, and Howard was just all edge. During one particular appearance on the show, Jay actually sat back and watched as a guest got into a fight with Howard and his longtime radio co-host Robin Quivers. This was not only the moment that Howard was banned for creating a scene, but it was also the moment that Howard vowed to despise Jay Leno for the rest of his life. The two never reconciled, and so far, it's looking like they never will. Number 5. Adrian Brody. Now, we're gonna throw Adrian in the middle because this is not a talk show, but this moment got him blacklisted from many shows. While hosting the late night sketch comedy show Saturday Night Live, Brody went off script in truly cringe-inducing fashion. When he came on the stage to present the musical act Sean Paul, he appeared in cartoonish dreadlocks and a tank top, using the most offensive Jamaican accent you've ever heard in your life. He was trying something that just did not work. The clip of this moment is only a minute long, but it feels like a lifetime. He was hosting in 2003, and since that live performance went south, not only has he been banned from SNL, but he's had very limited appearances on talk shows over the years. While some may claim it's due to a lack of work, others agree that wearing faux dreads and doing that on live TV is something you can't live down. Number 4. Harmony Korine. Harmony's name may not be familiar to you, but one of his movies might be. In 2012, Harmony directed a film called Spring Breakers, starring James Franco, Selena Gomez, and Vanessa Hudgens, but he's been around since the early 90s. While doing some promotions for a film in the mid-90s, Harmony got himself into a lot of trouble. He was visiting David Letterman, who claims that he caught Harmony rummaging through Meryl Streep's purse in her dressing room. Around this time, he was well known for being addicted to several illegal substances, especially spicy spoon juice, so he was doing everything he could to get his next fix. According to David, he went upstairs to greet Meryl before the show and knocked on the door. Inside was not Meryl, but Harmony hunched over a purse in the corner rummaging like a raccoon. David told him to put everything back and to exit the building as soon as possible. A lifetime ban was issued and Korine was blacklisted by fellow studios. Since then, he has been able to get clean and sober, and David issued a statement congratulating him on his sobriety and lifting his ban. Number 3. Conan. Conan O'Brien has been the host of his own late night television series since 1993, originally hosting Late Night with Conan O'Brien before moving to his own series in 2010 simply titled Conan. The show may be a success now, but it actually comes from a feud with Jay Leno and a ban that lasted right up till 2014. One of Conan's biggest competitors on the late night scene was Jay Leno's Tonight Show. Both shows had strong ratings and had become staples in late night history, so when it came time to negotiate a new contract with the big wigs at NBC, they told Conan that he would be moved to host the primetime Tonight Show in 5 5 years, something that he was very excited about, but something that they did not tell Jay. After the 5 years were over and the year was 2009, the decision was made to move Conan to The Tonight Show and Jay would get his own talk show. Well, the viewer numbers declined dramatically, and it was obvious that this was not going to work. An argument took place between Conan and Leno, with both men fighting for their right to host. One show was going to have to go. Well, it was eventually decided that Conan and his crew would be given $45 million to go make their own show, while Leno returned to his desk. His triumphant return in 2010 was coupled with a lifetime ban from the show while he was still the host. He has since appeared to speak to current host Jimmy Fallon, but for a long time Conan was restricted to his own little studio. Number 2, Bobcat Goldthwait. Bobcat may not be much of an actor these days, but in the 80s and the 90s, this dude was dominating the film and comedy scene. His zany brand of over-the-top high-energy performance was well received by most people who saw him. In fact, he made Police Academy even better than they already were. In the mid-1990s, Bobcat's career was at its peak, meaning that he was making appearances left and right to promote projects, and one of those promotions was on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. Bobcat is already a very chaotic man, but this stunt was the stuff of legends. At one point in the interview, Bobcat pulls out a can of lighter fluid, sprays it on his seat, and sets it on fire. The reason why he set it on fire was because he was attempting to make a joke with Leno and make a memorable talk show moment. Well, he certainly did. Leno didn't think it was funny at all. He actually made Bobcat sit in the mess after he puts out the fire. The studio charged Bobcat with recklessly causing a fire along with a misdemeanor. He was ordered to pay nearly $4,000 in fines and received 3 years of probation. As you may expect, he was blacklisted from ever appearing on that show so long as Jay Leno was the host. Number 1, Artie Lang. Comedian Artie Lang was a larger-than-life performer in the 90s and early 2000s. Now, Artie wasn't just a movie star, but he was also a co-host working with radio legend Howard Stern, who, we already talked about. Artie's career has been filled with controversy and negative news, as his long struggle with substance control issues has been very well documented. The ban comes from his longtime buddy Conan O'Brien, but it's not because of some big controversy. It was actually a move designed to encourage Artie to quit. Conan made it very clear that Artie would not be welcomed back as a guest until he was clean and sober. He had a rocky history when it came to talk shows, being intoxicated beyond belief for a majority of his TV spots. These days, Artie claims to be sober and has quit acting for good to focus on his mental health. Number 10. Mike Tyson. It's hard to pick just one Mike Tyson meltdown, so let's talk about all of them. He got his start in the world of professional boxing in the early 80s, but as the years went by, more and more controversies came to light. This is probably why he has such a troubled history with interviewers. In the mid-90s, he was speaking with a news anchor for Channel 5 News when he became annoyed at the line of questioning, suggesting that his recent 6-month hiatus may threaten his ability to box. Mike said, "F you," and a few other things that I'm not allowed to quote. But that wasn't even close to the level of fury that this dude is capable of. During a press tour for his latest bout in the early 2000s, he was wrapping up an interview when he lashed out at a fan in the crowd and started hurling insults at him left and right, calling them the British word for cancer sticks. The clip became viral overnight and placed his career even further into jeopardy than it already was. But he finally drove that last nail into the coffin on CP24's Breakfast Television after somehow maintaining enough relevance to get a one-man show. Mike was sitting down with host Nathan Downer to promote the show when the interview took a hard left and went from "So what's this thing about?" to "So should you even be allowed on stage, you gross man?" It's not exactly what the interviewer said, but apparently that is exactly what Mike heard. He stopped answering the questions honestly and instead started responding with sarcastic insults and more F-words and several threats towards the anchor. Seriously, whoever keeps letting that guy on camera really needs to stop. Number 9. Tom Cruise. Matt Lauer's not just a terrible dude who turned out to be creepy, he was once a popular talk show host in the early 2000s. During an interview with Tom Cruise in 2005, the topic of his scientific beliefs came up that quickly sent him into a rant about psychiatry. Somehow this topic got onto Ritalin and pseudosciences, and Tom started yelling at Matt about knowing more than him, like he had some kind of inside information that he was a secret therapist or something. The interview came at the height of Tom's very public descent into chaotic badness, becoming very famous for his outlandish beliefs and his wish to push them onto other people. The highlight of the interview came when Cruise was asked about his previous criticisms of Brooke Shields taking anti-sad time pills, to which he responded to calling Matt a glib. I don't know what that means, but look it up. This is only one of several interviews from 2005 that we could discuss today, but something tells me it won't be the last time that Tom appears on this list. Wink wink, nudge nudge, he's gonna be back. Number 8. Cardi B. In 2017, rapper Cardi B and model Asia Davies appeared on an episode of VH1's Love and Hip Hop talk show. Things started getting heated very quickly when the topic of Asia's ex-boyfriend Swift came up. According to Davies, she was convinced that Cardi and Swift were intimate together while she was still dating Swift. Cardi responded to the accusations by throwing her stiletto at Asia's face. She then jumped up and began making her way towards the model, but was stopped by 2 large security guards. Good thing too, considering on the other side of the room, Asia had been doing the exact same thing and was also being held back. An all-out brawl almost took place, but the altercation ended up being the pair yelling at each other across the room, with Cardi's main grievance being the judgment placed upon her by Davies for being an exotic dancer before her time as a music artist. While Davies claimed that wasn't the case, it was very clear from both their verbal and physical language that someone was holding something back. Number 7. Quentin Tarantino. While doing press for his latest masterpiece Django Unchained in 2013, critically acclaimed director Quentin Tarantino was involved in a very confrontational interview with Channel 4 news anchor Krishnan Guru Murthy. The interview was intended to be a bit of press for the project, but it quickly turned into a small profile piece on Quentin, with Krishnan asking him about several topics not related to the movie. He asked about Quentin's opinion on the backlash the project seemed to be receiving, before moving on to a broader subject on why he seems to enjoy putting so many graphic scenes in his movies. This is the moment that he snaps. Not only has he answered that question several times in the past, it literally had nothing to do with what he was brought on the show to discuss. Refusing to answer the question, Tarantino tells Krishnan that he is shutting his butt down. He had been nothing but accommodating up until that point, reacting fairly well to some of the more sensitive questions that he was asking, but he went too far and the director let this man have it. This wasn't the only time that Krishnan has caused a celebrity to lose their cool. A few years ago, he was interviewing Robert Downey Jr. about Age of Ultron when he once again went off script and asked him about his dark past rather than the project that he was promoting. This made Robert quickly stand up and thank him, remove his mic, and just walk away. Seriously, this dude needs to stop being put on camera. Number 6. Kanye West. Kanye was slowly going mad in the eyes of the public way back in 2010. As the years went by, he's made more and more TV appearances, but it wasn't until 2018 where his political beliefs got him heated on Jimmy Kimmel. When Jimmy asked Kanye how he felt about the response to his decree that he was all for President at the time Donald Trump, which was largely criticized, he defended his statements by claiming that he did not have to conform to some united mindset and that he was a little bit upset at the backlash, but that a part of him kind of enjoyed the hate. He then suggested the world was in a simulation, claiming that the world is just filled with unpaid actors. The over 20-minute interview was filled with metaphors, the concept of love, and a comparison to the Son of God. This interview was only a short time after his anti-Semitic tweets were circulating the internet. Ye even makes a joke about the anxiety of asking his publicist to appear on the show. He was fairly calm in his delivery of his opinions, but he made sure his opinions were known. Number 5. Steve-O. Steve was once a world-famous stuntman whose journey to sobriety is truly inspirational. Unfortunately, in his early years of fame, Steve was known for having a sweet tooth for illegal substances. This made him an excellent guest on late-night talk shows. Host of On Too Late, Adam Carolla, found out the hard way that you should never encourage Steve to do anything before he gets on camera. During one late-night appearance in the mid-2000s, the host is definitely on a few things. The host suggested that he had a few adult beverages in preparation for a game, but his speech is slurred beyond comprehension other than the B word being hurled at the audience over and over again. You know, the one that rhymes with snitch. He then begins to tell the host that he loves him, but he will end his life right there, and then he sloppily hugs Adam before trying to flip his chair with him inside of it. His issue with substances was very well documented throughout the years, but this late night appearance will forever live rent-free in my skull. Thankfully, as I mentioned, he won this battle and he's currently 15 years sober now, spending most of his time running a podcast with Adam. I have so much respect for this guy. He went from to, okay, let's hear a word from today's sponsor, Kombucha Kings. Number 4, Bobcat Goldthwait. Allow me to start this entry with an impression of Bobcat Goldthwait smelling something he likes. Thank you. Bobcat may not be much of an actor these days, but in the 80s and the 90s, he was dominating the film and comedy scene. His zany brand of over-the-top, high-energy performance was well received by any and all who saw him. I can still hear his voice echoing in my skull whenever I think of Police Academy. In 1994, comedian Arsenio Hall invited his longtime buddy Bobcat onto his talk show, which unfortunately was in its final days on air. When Bobcat heard the cancellation, he decided to send a message to the big brains that made the decision. He spray paints the word Paramount on the wall behind him, throws furniture around, breaks TV screens, all while Arsenio just kinda sits back and laughs. When they returned from commercial, the set was in ruins. Despite that though, Arsenio joked, saying, the worst part is I have to pretend like I'm mad at him. Joke's on him, that wasn't the only talk show meltdown that he's partaken in. A few years after this, Bobcat set a chair on fire on Jay Leno's show. For no reason, just for fun. Like he was standing there just going, oh, fire, yeah. Man, that guy was unhinged. He was fined over $3,000 and made to replace the chair. Oh, and in case you haven't noticed, he hasn't been asked to appear on any talk shows ever again. Number 3, Tom Cruise. Again. I told you he'd be back. Returning for another round on our list, you don't think we'd forget about Oprah, did you? Following the announcement that he got engaged to Katie Holmes in the early 2000s, Tom appeared on an episode of The Oprah Winfrey Show that has gone down in history as one of the most chaotic TV interviews of all time. From the moment he steps on the stage, things just begin to go horribly wrong. He throws his arms up in the air, he rubs Oprah's shoulders like she's got a stain that he just won't come out. Tom jumped on her couch, he grabbed her hands over and over, she couldn't even get the questions that she had out. Eventually Oprah was like, whatever, just bring Katie out, and the cameras followed Tom as he ran around the studio trying to find her like he was a nature guy running through a jungle with his camera crew behind him. The moment cemented Tom as a man with many hidden personalities. While it has not affected his work as an actor per se, ever since that day whenever he's brought in for press or any kind of interview, all entrances and exits must be locked at all times. Number 2, Crispin Glover. Crispin may not be very active in the Hollywood mainstream these days, but he's most certainly been in some of your top 10 favorite flicks. Being featured in movies like Charlie's Angels and Back to the Future, Crispin was always considered to be an eccentric man both on and off camera. In 1987, he made one of the most notorious appearances in late night television history. He was a guest on The Late Night Show with David Letterman and was supposed to promote a new indie flick called River's Edge. Instead, he delivered one of the most bizarre interviews of all time without any clear reason why. Many have speculated over the years that this was a staged bit, but nobody has ever actually confirmed that story. From the moment Crispin is brought on set, he seems to be distressed. He wore strange clothes, including black platform shoes, and instead of answering questions about the project, he decided to rant about his portrayal by the media, literally pulling out press clips and quoting them on the air. He claimed people thought that he was weak, and then challenged David to an arm wrestling match before getting out of his chair and delivering a high kick into David's direction. Getting just within inches of his face, David giggled and cut the interview short. Whether it was staged or not, Crispin's infamous interview will go down in history as one of the strangest of all time. And at number 1, of course, it's Charlie Sheen. Charlie rose to fame in the early 1980s after starring in a slew of cult classic flicks like Red Dawn, The Boys Next Door, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off in a brief but memorable cameo. He fell into the mainstream in 2003 when he began playing the character Charlie Harper in the hit sitcom 2.5 Men. So good that even just mentioning it gets the theme song stuck in your head. However, in 2009, he was arrested for attempting to harm his wife Brooke Mueller on several occasions. At the time of his arrest, both parties had been indulging in adult beverages, with Sheen becoming enraged beyond control. Following this, a restraining order was placed prohibiting Sheen from being within 100 feet of both Brooke and their kids. Despite all the controversy, Charlie was later seen doing press for an upcoming movie on The Today Show. When the interviewer asked Charlie what was behind his sudden behavior, claiming that he was being perceived as an angry and erratic man, but Sheen responded with, no, it's my passion, before launching into a no snow-fueled tirade. Charlie's interview was defensive to say the least, with his energy just being weird and aggressive the entire time. Ever since then, Charlie has maintained a strange air of arrogance towards himself, and he still seems to think that he's the king of TV and quote, winning, when in reality this is probably the first time you've heard about him in a while.
At number 10, Kris Jenner. Simply titled Kris, the momager of the Kardashian clan, starred in a 6-week test run of her talk show. Not only did it receive terrible reviews, but it was canceled before it was even picked up. Frank Sisha, Senior VP and President of Programming at Fox TVS, admitted he knew by the time the test ended the show was not going to work. He claimed Jenner was uninteresting, trying to capitalize on her own name, and didn't have the ability to entertain. When the cameras were on, she looked like a deer in headlights, she had trouble reading the prompter, and the conversations she would have with her guests almost felt like she was trying to take some kind of survey with the most basic questions like where are you from and what's your hobby. He did praise her hard work, but ultimately the project was a flop from the start. In fact, the studio later received hate mail aimed towards Kris, claiming her show would have been one of the worst moves for the Kardashian family ever. At number 9, Martin Short. Martin Short has had 2 shows with his name attached in his lifetime. The more popular and longer lasting of the 2 was his 1-season talk show, The Martin Short Show, which was a simple late night talk show with a few sketches between A and B. The short-lived predecessor was a sketch show of the same name. The premise was Marty playing himself in a sitcom about his day-to-day before going on stage as a talk show host. Very meta indeed. As you may expect, the format was a little weird. Studio execs were complaining that it felt like a rip-off of Seinfeld with a bit too much time spent on the talk show portion of things. After 3 episodes were filmed and edited, a test audience was brought in and the decision was unanimous. It sucked. At number 8, Jada Pinkett Smith. Jada and her husband Will have made headlines in the news several times over the years, usually for something bad like infidelity or face smacking, but earlier this year it was announced that her Facebook talk show, Red Table Talk, was going to be canceled following several years online. The decision was made following the distribution company's shift to no longer produce independent content. Despite having a pretty solid slew of guests, the topics tended to drift into the too much information realm, with her sit-down with her husband Will Smith being one of the most revealing episodes. The show featured Jada, her mother Adrienne Banfield Norris, and her daughter Willow Smith discussing various topics, with mom Jada being the main host when it came time to the heavy one-on-ones. Jada herself has been shaded in controversy over the past few years as infidelity rumors seem to be brought up more and more. Her show was taken off the internet, and despite trying to find a new home elsewhere, it's looking like the show will never see the light of day again. At number 7, Sarah Silverman. Sarah is a very popular stand-up comedian. These days, she's out on the picket lines of the SAG strike with her fellow performers, but a few years ago, she was sitting cozy on the set of her very own talk show called I Love You America. The show was aimed to give Sarah an outlet to poke fun at the current political and emotional landscape of the country. She would also from time to time bring on various celebrity guests to discuss their past and share stories. There was a lot going on for Sarah, whether it was connecting with firemen in Texas over making accidents in their pants or going on a blind date with a conservative lobbyist in DC. She was never holding back. The show was actually pretty well received among Sarah's fans, but the executives over at Hulu did not appreciate the content of the show. Apparently, big budget studios don't like it when you get politics involved. The show only lasted 1 season, including 21 episodes, and it was nominated for an Emmy in 2018 for Outstanding Variety Sketch Series before its untimely demise. At number 6, TJ Miller. Before being accused of misconduct by several women, Miller was on the hot streak starring in Silicon Valley and the Deadpool franchise. In 2017, he was given a green light to host an 8-episode talk series called The Oprah Show, but unlike normal talk shows, this was meant to act as both a talk show and a straight-up TV series. Miller voiced a massive blue puppet monster named Goreburger. The alien takes a Japanese talk show hostage as he learns what it means to be a true human from various celebrity guests, including Tig Notaro, Larry King, Rob Corddry, and Reggie Watts. The show was created after the success of the short sketch series of the same name on the Funny or Die YouTube channel. In fact, it ran for 2 seasons on YouTube before being picked up for television. The concept was neat and had clearly been working online. However, the show was canceled after only 8 episodes due to the lack of star power they were able to land on the show. Some say the show was canceled due to the allegations brought against Miller, as the cancellation announcement came only 1 week after the news began to make headlines. At number 5, Khloe Kardashian. The Kardashian family have tried many tactics over the years to increase their never-ending flow of cash. Like when Khloe decided she wanted to do something outside of keeping up with the Kardashians while still being her real authentic self. An online media outlet called FYI greenlit a talk series starring Khloe and her celebrity guests indulging in drinks while chatting, calling it Cocktails with Khloe, but with a K of course. She essentially created an environment where she could be paid to drink and chat with her friends, which is exactly what the show became. Unable to secure a list of celebrities, she forced her family to appear on the show along with several of her reality star friends, and some of her sisters even forced their friends to appear, like Snoop Dogg and Chrissy Teigen. Khloe acted as a producer of the series and would regularly clash with basically everyone on staff about what direction the show would go in. The drama, combined with the behavior of Khloe behind the scenes, caused them to cancel the show, releasing only 14 episodes of the planned 23. At number 4, George Lopez. George Lopez was once one of the most bankable men around. His comedic talents and eccentric personality made him instantly entertaining, so much so that he was given his own sitcom in the 90s, but we're here to talk about his talk show, Lopez Tonight. The show first aired in November 2009 on TBS. It actually didn't feature all that many celebrity guests and mainly relied on audience interaction and George's wild energy. He did have some guests appear, with Kobe Bryant and Ellen DeGeneres being the most notable. Unfortunately, at the end of 2010, there was a massive feud between The Tonight Show and Conan O'Brien that caused him to quit the series and sign on with TBS to create his own show. This meant that Lopez would be pushed from a primetime 11 p.m. slot to the less exciting midnight spot. This move caused a steep decline in ratings, and as of August 2011, they decided to cancel the show entirely. The short-lived show will be remembered as a good time, as the decline only came from the time change. At number 3, Sharon Osbourne. A couple of years ago on the popular talk show The Talk, hosts Cheryl Underwood and Sharon Osbourne began to discuss the topic of race. They were talking about the recent firing of Sharon's personal friend Piers Morgan from Good Morning Britain over a series of comments he made live on air. Sharon went off and began aggressively defending her friend, asking Cheryl what Piers said specifically that was racist. She then went on to say that she was being put in an electric chair, and due to her connection to Piers, that she herself must agree with his statements. She went on to clarify that she did not support his comments per se, but she did support his right to free speech, but he used that free speech to say offensive things, so maybe don't support him. She then asked Cheryl over and over again what she had done wrong. What has she done or said? Cheryl then signed off for a commercial break before Sharon let out some choice expletives. When they returned, the tension almost seemed worse and the conversation continued to escalate. Not long after the altercation, Sharon was asked to exit the show to avoid further backlash. At number 2, Jay Leno and Conan O'Brien. In 2004, NBC announced that late-night host Conan O'Brien would be taking over as the full-time host of The Tonight Show, replacing Jay Leno in 5 years' time. When those 5 years passed and it was time to upgrade, NBC did not want to lose Leno to another network, so they gave him his own talk show in a primetime spot. The Jay Leno Show failed to capture an audience, and The Tonight Show with Conan O'Brien was not an instant rating smash. By the early 2010s, NBC had dismissed Conan and threw Jay back into the fold. Then Jay became public enemy number 1 because people thought he was the reason Conan lost his job. Oprah invited Leno to come onto the show to share his side of the story, and he didn't do much to save face. He wrote the entire thing off as a dramatic mess and then decided to play the victim card, claiming he felt sucker punched by backlash. He also admitted that when he announced his eventual resignation, that he was 100% lying to everyone's face. He then argued very passive-aggressively that NBC was right because under Conan's poor ratings, it marked, in his words, the first time in 60 years of The Tonight Show that it would have lost money. A poll was conducted on Oprah's website, and the consensus was that 96% of the audience hated Leno and missed Conan. Eventually, Leno was replaced by Jimmy Fallon, and Conan's show, Conan, was a massive hit.